Hmm. Emang, ya loh.
Hmm.
Gue tinggal dulu ya.
Iya, awas pet mati copot udah.
Beli makan. Udah gue copot.
Ya udah.
Hmm. Mana bocil? Bocil. Bocil. Rusak terus untuk.
Kenapa mak? Kenapa mak? Dia paling dingin banget ya. Terus tidur cepat tuh. Terus mau kemana tadi? Mahal parkir ya kan? Kipasnya mau benerin ya? Kipasnya mau benerin. Soalnya kok dingin tiba-tiba. Ini deh.
biar jaraknya lancar.
Iya.
Ini kayak extra aja warnanya tuh.
Oh.
Cuman ini asli dari jeruk nipis.
Ini deh, kasih mak. Iya.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Freestyle Chess Championship ongoing here in February of 2024. This is a mixed format type of event with rapid chess, classical long games of chess, and every single game that these players play is Fischer Random or Chess 960, where there are 960 possible opening setups. I guess technically it's 959 because we don't count the traditional one. It's been a tremendous ride so far. Today I will cover... I don't know if this man got mad, if he got inspired, or what. But oh my goodness. I will show you Ding Liren versus Alireza Firouzja. I will show you Vincent Keimer versus Gukesh. And I will show you Fabiano Caruana versus Levon Aronian. And for whatever reason, like, the cutoff here is just removing the Y and the G. I don't know what's happening on chess.com, but they're cutting off the Y's and the G's from all the players' names. My friends, Ding Liren is the current reigning defending world champion of chess, and he is not having a good time. He has played 9 games, and he has 1 point. He has he made 2 draws, and he's lost 7 games of chess. And now he is in the bracket to get 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th place. And he's playing Alireza Firouzja, and it is a very unique setup, by the way. So D4 is actually a king's pawn opening. Right, this is the setup that we have. If you're wondering, like I said, Fischer Random, you can look it up, a lot of different setups and so on. D4 played, and Alireza plays F5. So it's the Dutch defense, kind of. This is, in traditional circumstances, this is the Dutch defense. Players develop their pawns like this, and Alireza opens up the center right away, trying to get his bishop and his queen active. This bishop is active as well. Ding keeps the tension with knight to D3, trying to get his opponent to capture, maybe play E4. Alireza also keeps the tension, bringing out his knight to defend the center. Knight G3, and Ding's horse goes for a walk. All right, he's gonna take his horse down the Old Town Road. He's gonna ride till he can't no more. He's attacking this pawn on G7, which would then attack the queen. Alireza thinks for a bit, plays knight E7. Whoa. Knight, this is actually a fascinating position. Ding ends up going queen H4. Knight H5 is almost a losing move. Ding Liren is nearly in a losing position after 6 turns. And the reason is kind of insane. This pawn does not need to be protected, because the knight has no way home. You cannot play G4 because I just go here. You have no way home. You now have to go in and perish. This is absolutely unbelievable. Ding plays knight G3, knight H5, and Alireza finds this beautiful defensive resource. And Ding has to go here, and now G5. And the reigning, defending world champion of chess is going to lose a knight after 6 moves. This is the cruelty of Fischer Random. This is the cruelty of Chess 960, of freestyle chess, of Chess 9LX, or whatever damn branding they want to throw on it to make it more mainstream. F4, knight to H5. White is lost because there's no way to protect the knight. You can't take the pawn. You can't take the pawn. You get trapped. So Ding goes queen H4, G5. He's got to take, if you're wondering. He can't play here because he's just going to lose the piece. Maybe there was a way out. Like, maybe he could have played queen G4. He could have went here. Bishop here, knight g7, he could have lost the queen, knight here, then he could have went like here, whoop, and yeah, there, tried to escape. No, g5, he takes, and he just straight up goes down a knight. He's just straight up down a piece. Like, there was one way to survive, and he did not find it, and, you know, again, he ended up kind of looking like a genius because he had a bit of an advantage, like, with pieces, meaning his pieces were very strong, and he was pressuring a lot, but Alireza goes here and just develops the rest of his pieces and castles queenside, and he's just up a whole piece. Ding has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns versus Alireza's 4, so Ding is not totally losing, but Alireza just brings out the rest of his, he just simplifies and starts an attack. And I mean, this rook over here is actually doing a huge amount of damage. The bishop is a sniper. White's extra pawns are not felt. And Alireza plays cleanup. Look at this. Knight d5. What a nice idea to take. You can't take back. Oh my goodness. You can't take back because of bishop b6. And Alireza cleans up. Queen h2. Ding resigns. Resigns because queen h1 is on the way. White just has nothing. You can't play queen d4. Because I go here and I get queen g1 and I win. And Alireza just wins. He just wins with black. I mean, that is completely nuts. What a defensive resource. Knight back to e7 saying, come and get some. And Ding Liren is now 1 out of 10. 2 draws and 8 losses. That is unfathomable. And today there was a screenshot because the players are wearing heart rate monitors. Just to, you know, make it more exciting for the fans. And there was a moment his heart rate was 160, which, like, I hope that's a glitch because 160 is like running. I mean, that would be really tragic if he had like anxiety or panic because of, I don't know, chess or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I feel bad because I have to cover the games. You know? I don't know. All right, let's keep moving. Gukesh versus Vincent Keimer. Now we will analyze the openings that the players are playing in every one of these games. So we will be taking a look at like what type of opening setup. So in this particular game, they chose this setup. All right, in this game, they chose this setup. But yeah, let's keep moving right along. So Gukesh, Vincent Keimer, these guys decide to attack the center right away. They try to open up the king and the queen. Knight g6, identical position. Knight b3, knight d6. So that's the way the imbalance is immediately created. Knight b3, knight d6, and now Gukesh plays knight f5. So he voluntarily moves a piece 2 times, but his idea is to, of course, dislodge the defense of the center. So making it difficult to defend the center. Yeah, Vincent's not going to do that. Vincent instead plops his knight on c4 and says, hey, Gukesh, who's going to protect this pawn? Gukesh plays queen c3, which defends. And now we have an opening of the center. DE, FE, ED, queen d4 check. And Vincent voluntarily moves his king. So he can't castle that way, and he can't castle that way either. But he correctly evaluated that for this moment in time, right here, despite being weakened of the king, Gukesh can't do anything. He can't develop that way, and he can't develop that way. And if white plays bishop f2, black will play c6, bring the bishop, and get in. So you could castle, but then I go here, and you're gonna lose a rook, because that's Fischer freaking random for you. So that's not gonna work. Suddenly Gukesh is like, wait a minute, plays knight e3, and Vincent just brings out his queen, brings out his knight. Gukesh tries to create counterplay. Now we have knight takes e3 check because it's Fischer random and the damn king is in the center, and queen b4. And Vincent is just targeting the white position. It is not easy to make a move here. Now Gukesh makes a king move to get the king out of the center, but now here comes a5 and the bishop. Oh my. Knight back to d7. You can't move the knight because you are pinned. Gukesh plays here, and Vincent is up a knight and a pawn. And then he ends the game in style, rook d1. He ends the game in style, bishop e6, targeting the rook, targeting the queen. And if you take the queen, I take your queen, and if you take, I take, and then if you take, I take, and you are down a knight in an endgame, and I don't care if we started with Fischer random, chess 960, or chess 9LX, I will beat you in this endgame because you are down a knight. That was a weird one. That was a weird game. This game played between Ding and Fallujah had a very, obscure kind of setup where this happened. But in this game, these guys opened up the center right away. And then somehow, when the dust had settled, move 9, white was lost. Which is weird. Like, this is a weird type of chess, man. This is a weird type of chess. And the players don't even realize it. Like, stuff just happens. And then that's it, and then the game is over. So we will keep an eye out. Now we're in the semifinals now, and we will get to this incredible game between Magnus and Neuderbek. But this is the other semifinal, right? And this is Levon versus Fabiano. These guys have played each other probably like 70 times, if not 100 exact position, right? Right, this is a carbon copy. But Fabiano plays these three, and then plays bishop c4. Okay, so plays bishop c4. That's not a move that we've seen yet. Knight ce2. Clearly, Fabiano's idea was to get rid of this bishop. He did not. He thought that bishop was an issue to play a game of chess when you don't have space. All right, when you are lacking. Fabiano castles. And Levon doesn't wait at all. He plays d5. He just continues to march forward into Fabiano's territory. And this is a very close position. Both sides have 8 pawns. In positions like this, you look at maneuvers of pieces, but you also look at pawn breaks. And I got news for you. Fabiano ain't never playing this move, f5. He is never playing that move for 2 reasons. Number 1, it loses a pawn. But even if it doesn't lose a pawn, it opens up the line of assault at your king. And I'm not sure you want to do that. So Fabi takes, blockades, and says, all right, do your worst. And according to the computer, the position is in the balance. Levon plays here, queen f2, and castle short. And this is our position. And this game will be won and lost either by infiltrating the queen side or by shutting down. Take my bishop, you can take my bishop. All right, but I'm not taking your bishop. You got to take my bishop. All right? d6. Bishop back to d2. Bishop into d4. And here comes rook d1. Remember I told you a while ago, controlling this? Black can't get in. So nothing in white's position is accessible. Nothing. Which means Levon has made the necessary preparations, and now the only way forward here for white is f4. You have completely and totally shut down the queen side. These rooks are symbolic. Fabiano braces himself, spends 7 minutes, finds the wrong idea. The right idea was apparently queen e8, queen d8, queen b6, for reasons I cannot explain to you. That is what the engine wants him to play, or rook b8 and bishop a7. Again, if you put Stockfish on trial in a courtroom, it wouldn't be able to defend its story. H6, however, is what Fabiano plays because he has an idea to create a defensive setup. But here comes Levon, and Levon is a monster when he gets creative and when he begins attacking. He completely shuts down Black's position. And now, if Levon at any point is able to play h4, g5 and get in, he's gonna win. So Fabi plays here. Levon doesn't trade. Fabi plays here. Levon does trade by damaging Black's pawns. Now Fabiano was relying on rook to c3. We're going to see who's right and who's wrong. Get into an endgame and I win one of them. It's still trying to claim like queen d8 and there's a fortress and Black can't get in. And maybe this is what Fabiano should have gone for. But he goes here and then they get the 40th move of the game, right? They get their bonus time. And Fabiano sneaks in, but that's not what he should have done. Apparently, instead of that, he should have went queen d8, put his queen on a5, and all Fabiano can hope for is perpetual check. This is the most miserable king and knight in the history of king and knight. Ever. Queen b2, and Fabiano does get in and get a pawn, but Levon now has a complete clean slate. Yes, material is equal, but it's not going to be equal for long. Bishop c2, he gets the pawn on d6. You may wonder, why is Fabiano just not defending his pawns? c5. That's why. Because when Levon suffocated these pieces, that was for this. How miserable is this position? How, look at you can't move. Your only move is to lose the knight, and you play h5, I play d7, d8. Best part is I'm gonna play d7, d8. I'm gonna make a knight, and I'm gonna mate you. Not actually, because you'll go here, but it's misery, and it's possible. And he's gonna win the game because once he escapes perpetual check, the pawn's going. Fabiano resigns. What a game by Levon. What a game by Levon. He took this space advantage all the way to the bank. This game must have felt horrible. This must have felt like a root canal for Fabiano. Oh my goodness. And I'm a fan of Fabiano, but let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I love that. I love that clip. This is hard. I mean, this is... Fabiano's got to get revenge tomorrow. Levon leads this semifinal 1-0. Now, again, I will just circle back to the opening in this game. Obviously, very obscure. Not a full setup like this. Not a full setup like this one. Lastly, we have Magnus Carlsen versus Nodirbek Abdusatorov, which, of course, is a very fun matchup of generations. Yeah. Here we go. Grob. Leave it to Magnus. All the other sheep playing in the center. No, obviously I'm not insulting the players. It's a joke. I'm just saying that everybody else is playing in the center. Magnus sits down and he plays the Grob. And he wrote it on his score sheet too. His score sheet, they posted, like, you know, him notating. I don't know why players still have to write the moves down. I think it's like for claiming 40th move or whatever. But he also said it was 2023. We've all done that. What is like the cutoff by which you should not be writing 2023 on your dates anymore in the new year? I don't actually know. So anyway, Grob. Hou Yifan is the youngest woman to have ever won she's actually the youngest person ever to win a world championship in any field, 16. And she won the overall women's world championship. Nodirbek won the rapid world championship at the age of 17. And he said many times, like, he doesn't, there's no respect there. He's trying to beat Magnus every game. Knight G3, F6, D4. Okay, wait. I beg your pardon, isn't this not protected? Yeah, absolutely. This is a pawn gambit by Magnus. Whose idea must have been F4 to take space. And if Nodirbek had played C5, I actually think Magnus would have just went straight up gambit style and just gotten an initiative and played like this. I mean, I have no idea, but I'm not exaggerating. He straight up is giving up a pawn. Maybe he would have gone gambit style right away. I don't know. I don't know. But what a move. What a concept. We have yet to see if it's going to be good or not. Nodirbek says no thank you. He says you can take my pawn. Now we do see this setup employed. You know, the world champions of the world playing the same type of structure over here. Now we have F3. So long term, this bishop stays open. We're going to obviously move the c pawn at some point in the future, and this bishop is going to stay open as well. And where are the guys going to castle? Because we've seen everything, right? We saw these guys just straight up strap a dynamite and blow open the center. We saw here tragedy as Ding ventured in and tried to get this pawn. These guys played a very unique setup. But what's going to happen here? Pawn takes, bishop takes. Nodirbek plays c. In chess, bishop for knight is not usually a good deal. But this is Fischer random, so nobody knows anything about this format. And the truth is, when you give up a dark squared bishop for a knight, inherently what happens? Well, white loses an attacker on the dark squares. Black loses a controller of both colors. Black loses a controller of light and dark. So after takes and knight b4, who's going to stand up for the light squares in the center? Right? Now we have c3. Trading the dark squared bishop will regroup and potentially create a fortress on the dark squares and target black's weak pawn. Fascinating. So I just, I would love to know what goes in his head when he trades this and he plays like this. And now c3. Bishop f4 from Nodirbek. Apparently an error. Apparently it would have been better to play g6, negating the forward mobility of this knight. Then moving on with the rest of the game. But he opts for bishop f4, which kind of cuts the position for white. And clearly his idea was to reroute the bishop over here, where he thought my bishop is better placed than your knight. Magnus says, okay, f4. Let me wall out your bishop that you just put there. I love how this is just like a silent debate of who's the bigger idiot. Right? Like, that's that's really what chess is all about. Even at 500, where you're both idiots. But, even at my level of chess, I'm also an idiot, and so is my opponent. So it's basically the idiot to make the last mistake. This is like, galaxy brain level chess. I mean, like, was it smart for Nodirbek to put his bishop? I don't know. f4. He castles long. Magnus brings the knight back and is like, okay, well, your bishop doesn't really have a role in the game. And by the way, I just want to say, what about d4? I mean, this looks absolutely horrifying if I'm playing white, but guess what? Combo, bishop f5, and I long castle too. So it's kind of like a bait, It's kind of like I'm baiting you in and I'm ready for the counterpunch. So Nordjubek decides, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to spend 10 minutes, and now I'm going to not allow the knight to come forward, and I'm also going to block your bishop. Magnus plays e3. So instant replay. Magnus took the knight on b6. Now look at these 3 pawns. This is very smart positional chess. c3, f4, e3. So now I've slowly put a bunch of my pawns on the dark squares, and I've left you with a weakness and doubled pawns that could be weak in the future. Nordjubek best move queen d7. It's a very tense game though. All right, he's got ideas of his own. He's gonna go here and target this pawn. Where's Magnus gonna commit his king, by the way? Magnus defends the pawn like this. Nordjubek puts the rook in the center. Now a big moment. White can actually already begin a fight on the queen side and castle that way. White can castle that way right now. Right, White could go this way right now, get the king out of the center. What is White gonna do? Can he play bishop c2 and castle this way? Probably. So he could leave his king, castle that way, or start an attack. And it's all good. And he's got 40 minutes to figure it out. So he plays knight c2 and decides my knight doesn't have a role there. I'm gonna reposition and defend myself. Can also begin advancing, can double up his rooks, can bring his knight into the game. He opts for bishop to f8, rerouting off of this to the c5 square. Now Magnus plays b4, stopping bishop c5 and inviting the en passant capture. Inviting this because obviously that would open up his rook. And since Nordjubek committed his king, he might not want to get involved in any of that. And as you can see from the trade, White is now better. So b4 is a big decision. Yet another one. Bishop e6. Nordjubek now says, Magnus, you better play h3. Magnus says, all right, that's easy. h3. Now, h5. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is vintage Nordjubek. He's not going to sit around and wait. h5, he's taking the fight directly to the goat. If you take, I take, and I'm coming right back to g4 and I'm winning. So h5 is a monster move. Now, Black could have just sat there and created a fortress, by the way. I'm just saying, he could have played f5, and only Black can win this position. Only Black, because the knight will come in and start, you know, really messing things up here for White. Nordjubek could have played f5. He chose not to. He plays h5. He doesn't want to lock the position. Magnus plays knight d4. Big decision. Do you take? Do you push? What do you do? He takes. Now Magnus counterpunches. f5. Supported by the bishop, supported by the knight and the rook. Now apparently against h5, the best move was f5 right away. But obviously Nordjubek wanted that. He wants to open up the position, and it's not clear for whom that is going to benefit, because then his bishop is going to reactivate. So very tense. f5. Nordjubek goes back. Magnus takes. Queen c7 targets the knight. Okay. Queen f3 defends. Now Nordjubek reactivates the bishop. That was the entire idea of playing h5 in the first place. It was to bait all of this and now reactivate the bishop. Rook e1. Friendly reminder, Magnus never castled. His king is still stranded in the center of the board. Bishop g5, looking to get here and undermine the control of the position. Now Magnus plays a4. Whoa. We just had a massive battle over here. Now Magnus says, oh yeah? Now I'm going to attack your king. G takes f5. Bishop takes f5 check, which forces the king into the attack. But before we attack, we play rook e2, because rook e2 has multiple ideas. Maybe I'm going that way. Maybe I'm going that way. And apparently it wasn't even the best move. Apparently he should have played a5. Apparently he should have just went for the attack. Obviously he liked rook to e2 a little bit better. Now knight to g6. With the idea of knight e5, with the idea of knight h4, Magnus gives up a second bishop for a knight to then plant a new knight on the f5 square. It's knights versus bishops. Very complicated game. He's basically, though, slowed down the black position. All Black can do is double on the e file or infiltrate on the h file. This is Magnus's plan. So if Magnus breaks in with a5, he's going to win the game. Queen e5. a5. The biggest crescendo of the game has been developed. Nordjubek decides, you know what? If this man does not have his queen, he can't mate me. What he could have done, by the way, is taken first. Because what happens in the game is he plays queen e5. Massive risk, because your king is not going to feel very safe. Rook takes g4. Rook a2 is mate. Now we see the full plan come to action. Nordjubek is just in time to remove one rook. So now he's not going to get mated. But it's bad news. because White's attack is unstoppable. You might be sitting there like, what are you talking about? Like, what if I just play king a8? Yeah, knight d6. So, knight d6, rook e3 check, king f2, you can't stop rook h8. Nobody can stop mate. And black doesn't have any moves. Like, black can play, black doesn't have a move. Black is in Zugzwang. If he plays king c8, it's knight d6. If you take, it doesn't actually solve anything, because rook to h8 is still a problem. So rook f8, I'm just gonna go here, and then here, and you can stop. So somehow, after everything is said and done, Magnus goes here, and Nordjubek just resigns. The computer doesn't even realize how bad the position is. It doesn't realize that black is in a Zugzwang. The threat is knight d6, and there's no way to stop it. You can play bishop f4, then I play knight g7. You can take my pawn, then I go here. You can't stop rook h8. You can make a run for it, then I come here. Then there's rook e4, then there's rook h8, king d7, knight c5, and I win the rook. At a minimum, the computer claims you could maybe try to win this position. Maybe he didn't like, you know, the opening of the b file. But that was the one mistake. Magnus wins a very nice positional back and forth game. I love when Nordjubek and Magnus play, and tomorrow Nordjubek has to beat Magnus on demand. Fabiano has to beat We have Magnus versus Hikaru, which will end today's recap. Before we jump into the games today, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Holzkern. Folks, it's the holiday season. Do you remember once in your life receiving a special present that made you feel... I hope you are ready for an amazing day of games. I have so many of them for you from every single matchup, from every single game, and we will of course end with all the games in the match between Magnus and Hikaru. They play 2 rapid games, and if it's tied 1-1, then they play an Armageddon where black gets draw odds, but it starts with less time. Let's start with this game between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. Fabi with the white pieces. This is rapid game number 2. Fabi plays e4. My man Magnus came to play knight c6, d4, d5, and it's like black is playing a drunk Caro-Kann. Basically, black has played an advanced Caro-Kann, but instead there's a knight on c6. Now, that is not as good as according to the computer, because white's center is very powerful and that black knight does not really truly exert pressure, because white can always play knight a3 and then kick the knight out with the move c3. But the position that we get gets very imbalanced very quickly. c3, f6, Magnus sacrificing development to deal with that inconvenience of a pawn in the center of the board. And then here, Magnus did some goofy stuff, a5. So he tries to suppress Fabiano's queen side. Fabi just puts a rook in the center, bishop c5 by Magnus, and then this move is crazy. Stockfish hated this move for a second. It was like, Magnus, what are you doing? What about the development of your whole side of the board? Knight g5 apparently is really strong, going after h6.